Welcome to the Career Revolution podcast, where we believe that big ideas for careers start small and it's never too late to get started. My name's Licia Dewing and I'm your host. And I'm a career strategist and I get to work with people to help them design their careers so that they can go to work on purpose and not just live for the weekend. Our special guest today, Peter Wingrove, is making a massive difference in the world of mental health and online gaming. Peter and I connected between 8 or 10 years ago. We were chatting earlier and we were trying to figure out exactly when it was, when he was the managing director of GSB, the Graduate School of Business at UCT. Peter's been in strategic marketing for corporations prior to that. He's familiar with the corridors of employment as well as entrepreneurship. And in his most recent CEO role of SureMind, Peter was dedicated to raising awareness and promoting positive conversations about mental health within schools, creating a supportive environment for those dealing with mental health issues. At the Association for Online Gamers, where Peter is a director and founder, he and his team are working on a groundbreaking initiative to use online gaming as a platform for mental health support and education. Through these roles, Peter is bridging the gap between mental health advocacy and online gaming and driving a movement that's changing the way we think about mental health and the gaming community. Before we dive into the conversation and I welcome Peter into the studio, I'd like to remind you, if you're listening on LinkedIn or YouTube Live, please make sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel. And if you're catching this in podcast format, make sure to leave a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. So without any further ado, Peter, welcome. Welcome to the Career Revolution podcast. Let's kick things off and tell me a bit about how you arrived at what is a calling for you now in terms of mental health advocacy. I know that you discussed with me that you recently went through a personal tragedy. Are you happy to share a little bit about that and tell us about SureMind and what got you to where you are now? Because quite an interesting career revolution along the way.
Quite a few years ago now. Sure. Quite a few years ago, actually before I was at the GSB, I lost my mother, who was a high-powered executive in her day. She was absolutely the definition of the burn the bra generation. And without losing her femininity or her motherliness, I grew up in a household where male and female roles were equal. Growing up, I had to learn that, well, they're not that equal in real life, unfortunately. But certainly my mom worked hard at her career. And when I lost her to depression as a result of, tablets, alcohol misuse, and menopause, I didn't know any of these things. I didn't understand any of these things. I couldn't relate to what she was going through. As far as I was concerned, I just lost her. And I felt quite guilty for years afterwards that I couldn't have done more maybe to have saved her life. And it was perchance a few years after, actually, I just started at the GSB Foundation, which I set up together with 4 prominent alumni from the GSB, that I'd met a guy by the name of James Espy. And not long after I'd met him, he's also an alum, by the way, of the GSB from 1968. When a few years after that, James disappeared. He went quiet. Okay. And I, every now and again, would drop him a message and say, hey, James, thinking about you, be good to catch up, blah, blah. And probably about a year of doing that before James reached out to me and said, Peter, I've just been through the most terrible time with my mental health. And he explained to me his situation, what he'd been through, and so on. And it really struck me that a person of his achievements, remember, I lost my mom in 2009, and this is now 2014, 2015, and he has another doyen of industry. He's been the chairman of Shivers Brothers, and he invented Malibu. He invented Johnny Walker Blue Label. These are brands that are household names just about, but here's the guy who created all of this, and here's this guy, after all of this success, is struggling with his mental health. And it started to dawn, well, hang on a minute, there's more to this. If all of these sort of heroes, business heroes that I've always assumed have got it all sorted, and they've got it all right, if they can struggle with their mental health, then who am I to just say, hey, I'm strong and I can deal with it, and don't talk to me about mental health and depression and all of that. So that started my journey, and it was actually through James that I met the founder of Shaw Mind, a guy by the name of Adam Shaw, who told me about his passion for wanting to make sure that the next generation is not failed in the same way as the older generations. What does that mean? I wanted to make sure that the young people, that this generation of young people, have access to the right kind of treatment, the right kind of services, but importantly, the right kind of education to equip them and arm them with the toolkit to deal with life's challenges. Let's face it, life can be a rocky road for most people during the course of a lifetime. So that really got me thinking, about a life of purpose. And I think, I can point out a few lecturers at the GSB whose fault this is too, who really started me along the journey of thinking about having a life with purpose. It's not enough. I mean, how much is enough? How big must your bank balance be? How many Lamborghinis can you have? How many can you drive at once? How many houses can you have? How many rooms can your house? Do you know what I mean? And you carry on examining that. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not a socialist. I absolutely love beautiful things and nice things. But I do believe that there's nothing wrong with achieving both. There's nothing wrong with getting all the nice things, but also living a life that means something. So when you're gone one day, the world can say, well, it was good that you existed. It was good that you were here because you made a positive difference to humanity. And when I was then offered the opportunity by Adam and James to originally to be the operations director for their fledgling charity in the UK, I seized the opportunity. I thought, what a marvelous idea and what a marvelous role to run with. So I came over to the UK. I spoke to my then fiance, and I think we organized our wedding in 7 days. We had to get visas sorted out, and because Adam didn't want to wait, he was like, "Come and do it for us in the UK and get here. How quickly can you get here?" kind of thing.
And you're the guy, so do it fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Just get it done, right? So, so anyway, long story short, we came over to the UK, and before I even started, the CEO had resigned and left. So I came into an organization that had no CEO. It had no particular strategy, because that was part of the role I was bringing to them. I was bringing a bit more of a strategy and looking at some of the things that they'd managed to achieve so far. But they were really just a campaign. They were a campaign about getting mental health education into schools. And I joined the charity, and there was no boss. So, there was the founder, but he spends his time between Florida and the UK. There was his book publishing business, which coincidentally shared the same office space. And there was one employee in the charity when I first arrived. And the founder Adam had also hired a few additional resources. Well, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I can say we had, let's call it a shakeout phase. And I think by the end of the year, we'd reduced the staff complement by 50%. But we did have some interesting initiatives that we launched. And we launched the Breathe program, the Breathe Cafe. It was a physical outreach facility. We learned all about food safety in the UK, because you have to keep a register for milk, and how often do you buy the milk, and where do you keep the milk, and how much of it was used, and blah, blah, blah. You've got to every hour or every few hours or something, you got to note this all in your register. I mean, stuff that has nothing to do with our purpose, right? But it was all part of trying to find how do we reach out to the community and provide that early intervention around mental health. So let's not wait till everybody's in crisis. Let's try and prevent the crisis from happening in the first place. So we started the Breathe Cafe, and that went through a few iterations before we got it right. And then COVID hit. And
the world changed.
Everything had to stop. The world changed. And I mean, I don't have to go into too much detail. Everybody's got their stories of pain and struggle during COVID, of loss. But also, I think, looking back, I think a lot of people have very smartly pivoted to the new reality. You and I were just talking earlier about this online streaming, the way podcasting has actually just come of age, really. So we had to quickly change as a charity that was there all about outreach and advocacy in the local community. Suddenly we couldn't connect with anyone except over the computer screen. And it's not the ideal way to talk to someone when they're struggling, right? People prefer physical contact. They prefer face-to-face, in-person contact. So anyway, we designed a whole suite of mental health online courses, downloadable PDF guides, and we unpacked mental health. So rather than just saying, oh, mental health, we said, well, mental health is a very broad topic. Let's get into some of the underlying things. Let's talk about anxiety. What is anxiety? What is depression? What is stress? And let's unpack all of those concepts. So we did that and designed a whole suite of training. We got it CPD accredited. And I think by the September of that year, Adam and James and the rest of the trustees had decided, well, may as well make him the CEO because, don't know when we're ever going to get back into an office, and seems to be doing a reasonable job. So let's give it to him. He's got the right idea. So I don't know whether it was a promotion or a punishment, but the reality is your responsibilities change quite substantially, and you've got to take the good with the bad, the mundane and boring stuff. But I guess that kind of summarizes the journey up to how I became CEO of SureMind, and it's been such an interesting journey. Things are changing now. In the non-profit that I've just started. Well, it's a for-profit. It's a social enterprise that I've started, co-founded. But the thing about purpose is, it's not so important where you're living that purpose, like which organization. It's more about something internal. It's something inside yourself that says, am I achieving that goal by doing this? Am I achieving that goal of having, and what is my purpose? I spent many years of my life, many years of my career not knowing what my purpose is. And I think I kind of fell into this by accident.
Or it found you. It feels to me that there's an element of it finding you. And, and the concept of success is something that's often given to us rather than we creating it ourselves.
Yeah.
And how do we measure that success, and what is that, and how does that success evolve over time is so closely aligned with purpose. Yet we're not really socialized into figuring that out. We're told, work hard, climb the ladder, and the company look after you. And yes, COVID was that moment that changed the world and brought us all to this opportunity of reflection of what am I doing here? We faced our mortality and having to go grocery shopping. The fear of this, the virus was horrific. But back to purpose, Peter, tell us about why mental health for children, because SureMind shifted. Talk to us about that, because you're a father now. Thanks for sharing the stories of the rapid fire marriage. That's great. So how has being a father layered into your purpose?
So to be honest, my daughter is coming up for 3 years old. She's a COVID baby. Let's just say that my mother warned me as a teenager to not do certain things. I thought I knew better. For many years, I got away with it, and then one day I didn't. And luckily, my wife and I were already married. We were already in the UK, and she announced she was pregnant. I laughed. I was like, no, it can't be. She said, no, I'm pregnant. I'm telling you, let's go to the doctor. And that was in itself a life-changing moment. And, of course, one's parents always tell you, wait until you hold the child in your own arms and then you'll understand. And you're like, yeah, whatever. But it truly was like that. It was life-changing. When I held my daughter in my arms, there was a bond there for life. And, the poor little thing, she's ill at the moment. She's got tonsillitis. But anyway, all of these things are sent to trial you as a father, right? As a parent, you need to learn all of these things. And but let's go back to the mental health of young people. I think if you want to solve the issue of mental health, you can't go and deal with people that are already broken. They need treatment. If you want the next generation to grow up more resilient, better equipped, to deal with life's challenges with a better understanding of mental health and better able to relate to it, then you've got to go to the young people. You've got to go to the children and young people. But what do you go to them with? What do you go to them with? How do you engage them? I mean, over the last 5 years, we've learned a tremendous amount about what works and what doesn't work. In the words of the children themselves, mental health is naff. So, and that's because the way we as adults perceive things are not the same as how children perceive them. The way we as adults might respond to a PowerPoint presentation and bullet points, and this is neurodiversity, and this is, what stress does to your body, and blah, blah, blah. That's not how children respond to things. That's boring. And if we are to win this battle, we need to stop talking about mental health, and we need to start having impact and action. And I'll come back to that later on. But importantly, we need to go to where we can connect with people. COVID was a really great example. Suddenly, we couldn't be physically together. What did we do? Zoom. Everybody figured out how to use Zoom and Teams. I don't know what happened to Skype. Skype was, for like years, the de facto standard. But look, even at this platform, right? Streaming and podcasting and everything, how it just massively improved. Because we as humans found a way to connect with one another, despite the fact that we were being restricted from being in each other's physical space. So in the same way, use that as a proxy for reaching young people, right? We as adults have a different way of socializing to this generation. I'll give you a very practical example. When we were all growing up, our parents used to say, get off the TV and go and play outside. That was great. I used to play in the street with my friends, run up and down. I had to be indoors before the street lights came on and, before the sun was down.
Yeah.
Today, if the kids go and play in the street, they'll get killed, right? The cars will run them over. There's too much traffic. Do you know what I mean? It's like the frame of reference has changed. But also, kids are hyper-connected. They're hyper-connected. They live a seamless existence between online virtual world and the offline physical world. It's a seamless existence. Whereas for the older generations, they are two distinct environments. Because we remember a time when the online stuff didn't exist. So with all of that I've said, how do we reach children? How do we reach children in a meaningful way that they pay attention and they internalize the skills and the examples and the things that we're trying to give them, that we're trying to teach them? So we pretty much learned in the mental health charity that lecturing kids through schools probably not going to work. It's probably not going to work for there's systemic reasons as well. There's not enough time in the school service. There's not enough teachers are not trained in mental health, and quite rightly feel, well, why should they be? They're not psychologists. So for a myriad of reasons, there's so many challenges to reaching young people. And that's when I, per chance, by absolute chance, came across somebody who'd been doing online coaching, right? Now, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, if I can, because I'm really excited about this project. But just to answer your question about why children, if we want to fix the next generation, we have to start educating the children. We have to be preventative. We have to be preventative with mental health, not reactive. Everything we do in mental health at the moment is reactive. I'm not sure how it is in South Africa, but in the UK, we've got child and adolescent mental health services. And they are overwhelmed. They are overwhelmed, right? I can only imagine in South Africa, the situation's 10 times worse. In fact, before I took on this role at Shaw Mine 5 years ago, I did a quick desktop study of what this mental health situation is in Southern Africa. And it's worse than it was at that time, worse than the UK.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I can only imagine
absolutely. I'm sort of agreeing with you across the board on that. Yeah. And let's keep going down the conversation of the connection with the online gaming. And if you were going to jump the gun, here's the place to tell. You're in the right place to jump the gun. But within reason. So, I mean, I'm fascinated because clearly lecturing in a school isn't going to help, and that's not going to shift anyone, and that's not going to do what's necessary. And yet here are children seamlessly interacting and solving problems within the gaming world. So you
are they solving them? I don't know, but I'll tell you what they are doing, and this is the interesting thing. So 95% of children in the UK are online gaming, in some form of online gaming. And about 99%. Yeah, 95%. It's 99% in the US. I don't have the figures for South Africa. I would imagine because of poverty levels, because of bandwidth being expensive, I would imagine those percentages are a bit lower. But remember, this is not just consoles or computers. This is also mobile games and that sort of thing. So everything from Candy Crush to League of Legends to Call of Duty or whatever. So if we now know that the kids are playing online, but here's another interesting thing. About 37% of gamers struggle with their mental health. That's compared with about 20% of people in the general population.
Wow.
So let's look at some more research. Research out of Oxford University tells us that certain video games have therapeutic benefits to certain mental health conditions. And if you start, joining all of the dots, you start thinking, well, hang on a minute. If the kids are playing online games and we know they're sitting, what parent recently did an activation at a large shopping center here where we spoke to probably around 1,000 parents. And they said, how many times do they see their kids sitting in the bedroom with their headsets on, playing games, talking to their mates over over Discord or something on the headset? Parents don't know what's going on or who they're speaking to. And I mean, the people they speak to can be all over the world, right? It's completely an unregulated space. It's there are no safety protocols in place. It's enough to give you a nightmare. But the kids are there. They are there, right? It just seems logical to me. Well, if the kids are there and they're enjoying themselves, isn't that the space to engage them in fun and unique ways that make them begin to learn and understand how to build their self-confidence, how to build their resilience, how to build a toolkit in themselves to be able to cope with life's hard knocks. Now, nobody expects a child to be absolutely perfect at being able to handle all of these things. But the point is, we need to start building those blocks in the individual from a young age, whether it be at school, in the home, from the parents, or some other way. That's the best way to make sure that the mental health of the next generation is better than the mental health of this generation. All indications, unfortunately, are that it's not going to be. right? Because current methods are not working. So it's time to kick it up. It's time to kick it up. It's time to kick over this hornet's nest and let them sting. That's fine. But let's go. Let's go in guns blazing. Most importantly, and this I feel really, really passionately about, it's not somebody else's responsibility. And mental health is not something that affects other people, right? Mental health is something we all have. It impacts us all, just like our physical health. And let's see, if you fall and you break your arm and blood's gushing out of your arm, right? Who is going to refuse you help? And will you refuse to go and get help? You'll probably phone the ambulance straight away. Say, come and get me. I'm bleeding. I need help. I need help.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when it comes to mental health, research shows that the average length of time a person who's struggling with their mental health takes to access help is, how long do you think? If you had to guess, how long do you think they procrastinate before they get help?
Days.
No,
Days or weeks?
much longer than that.
Months.
21 years. 21
years.
21 years. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So the most difficult step for someone who's struggling with their mental health is to acknowledge that they need help. To go and seek help, to say, I need help. Because unfortunately, in our society, and really, it's not just our society, I think across most cultures, I mean, there are some cultures that mental health is taboo. You don't even talk about it.
Yes.
Okay? Some of those cultures we live with in South Africa, right? And it's just, mental health is for crazy people and only crazy people, and normal people don't have mental health. And that's absolute nonsense. The death of my mother, the mental health breakdown that James had, my friend James, there is absolutely, I suffered with depression after my brother died in a motor accident. Then a few years later, my mom died. I struggled with terrible depression for a while. And the reality is, it can happen to any of us at any time in our lives, regardless of our age, regardless of our gender, regardless of how much money you have or don't have, or how successful a career you have or don't have, or how well educated you are or not. It is immaterial. It is immaterial. And that, for me, is the biggest problem in our society, that we still have such a stigma attached to mental health that people don't speak about it. Now, I don't expect us all to walk around wearing our mental health on our sleeve, like hearts on the sleeve type.
Sure.
But the reality is, when people are internalizing this stuff, they're burning themselves out.
Yeah.
Better to educate children to understand general mental health contexts like anxiety, stress, and what does it do to your body, and how do you mitigate that? Right? And
wonderful.
Help them understand these things from a young age, build in the toolkit, the emotional and mental toolkit that they have to be able to deal with some of that, but also the courage to be able to ask for help, to verbalize their feelings, and to ask for help when they need it. And that is the big ambition that we have through this new venture of mine and my co-founder, Stephen Parkin. We've set up a CIC. I think the nearest equivalent in South Africa is a Section 21 company.
Right.
It is not a charity. It is a for-profit enterprise that has no shareholders. For your American viewers, it's similar to an American B Corp. It is a social enterprise. And here, I hope some of the GSB lecturers are listening. Those of you who thought I was all for fracking the Karoo and hard oil and all of that, and the frowns I had in the class, my good colleagues and MBA full-time 2013, you all remember that. It is a social enterprise with the goal of that all profits are put back into the purpose of the organization. And what is its purpose?
Wonderful.
We want to ensure that young people are equipped to be successful in whatever that, how they define that, but to lead successful lives, to have successful life outcomes, and to prosper. And we doing that through the medium of online gaming.
Peter, I love the way purpose keeps coming up in our conversation, because we're here in the Career Revolution podcast, which is all about finding your calling, and purpose is the end result of that. So what advice do you have for anyone listening here who wants to follow in your footsteps and make some impact within the mental health sector? Obviously, we're going to get to talking about how we can support you and where we can, but what advice do you have in terms of your personal trajectory, your discovery of purpose? And we kind of got to the point that purpose found you. It came calling in many different ways. And here you are at this intersection of your career journey, being able to do something so tangible, so real, and so purposeful. What advice can you share about
so
career revolution?
What advice would I give? I would say be prepared to fail a lot. Be prepared to have a lot of hard knocks. People might not understand this, but a for-profit company is very easy to run, right? Let me qualify what I'm saying. It has one motive: make profit for your shareholders. That's it. That's all it's got to do. Find a way of doing that. A social enterprise has a different purpose. It has to both return an income because it needs to pay the lights, but it also needs to have impact, right? So you could make, as a social enterprise, you could make a lot of money and have zero impact, and people question why you exist. So it's a different metric. So if you are moving into the purpose space, whether that's through charitable work or volunteering. Volunteers, by the way, I take my hat off to you. I'm way too selfish to be a volunteer. Genuinely, I am. So people that are willing to give up their time and their effort to volunteer to help others, wow, that is brilliant. But whether you're volunteering or you're working in the not-for-profit space or the charity space, third sector, or you're working in social enterprise, be prepared to have many, many setbacks. And I think that's where your purpose really should be, that guiding light, that internal thing that churns you up at night, that when you're putting your head on the pillow, you either have to listen to music or you better have a notepad or something to write down the ideas on, because that's when the ideas flow. Do you know what I mean? When it starts getting quiet. I might struggle with a little bit of ADD myself, but I don't know. The point is, I found a way to make it work for me. And I would say you're gonna be kicked sometimes. You're gonna be kicked down, because unfortunately a lot of people don't have respect for third sector organizations. But that's okay. Move on. I learned a lot working under the leadership of Stuart Cohen. He was the chairman of the GSB Foundation, and I learned a tremendous amount from him and from Ian Cantor and Tiger Vessels and Pete Thorington, the four alumni who set that charity up. And the thing that always struck me about Stuart was he always had the sense of drive from inside about what we were doing. It didn't matter which pathway we had to go down and the convolutedness of some of the deals and relationships and all of that. He just had the singular purpose of wanting to help the previously disadvantaged in South Africa through an MBA scholarship. He just had that singular vision all the time. And I guess that was his purpose. And my purpose today is absolutely, there's all this stuff on the periphery, which you can be distracted by, but just don't lose your purpose. Don't lose that passion for why are you doing this? Why is it meaningful that you are alive today? Why is it meaningful that you got up today? That I think is a and you know what? It's okay. How old was I? I was in my 40s before I found my purpose. So if you're in your 20s and you're worried about not having your purpose, well, you don't even know who you are yet. I promise you. I promise you. Right? You might be brilliant. You might have a brilliant career and all of that. But I promise you, by the time you're 50, you're not going to recognize who you were in your 20s. And that's just life. I wish we could take who we are when we get older and instill that in the child, because that would make life so much easier for the young person who has to grow up. But maybe it's because we have to walk that path and fall
Yes.
and bump our knees and bump our heads and get up again. And
Yes.
that our pain and our struggles and our suffering are the very things, and the happiness, obviously, but all that struggle and pain is the stuff that shapes who we become.
Yeah.
And all the struggles that you have in living your purpose is the stuff that helps shape your purpose and make it more focused, more powerful. And yeah, so my advice, don't take yourself too seriously, because things happen and things aren't always going to work out the way you hope they do. Just don't take yourself too seriously and just keep going. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. That's the only real failure.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Straightforward and simple. It's the simple things that are harder to do, but that that path of purpose, it's it's a battle that we individually have to walk, and it's a road we, as you say, part of the human condition is we need to go through the valleys and the peaks and the down and the up. Peter, as we start to wrap up, how can our listeners support your mission and get involved in helping make a difference and getting behind your new advocacy project and this organization? So please let us know when we go live in LinkedIn and on YouTube. In the description box, there will be all the information and spaces and places to find you and connect with you.
Absolutely, yeah.
But in closing now, what can we do? How can we help? How can we support? What do you need?
Well, we're a startup social enterprise. We have the potential to go global. We're already speaking to some of my contacts in South Africa to license the program that we have. So we have a 16-week introductory program and a 16-week advanced program. It's all done online, securely. It is a structured coaching program, which essentially helps young people between the ages of 13 and 16 become better gamers. But in the process, we've built in a whole lot of mental, physical, and emotional well-being training and coaching as well. Our coaches are all peer mentor trained, safeguarding trained for the UK. That'll be important. DBS check, that's like a police clearance check. And they've all been trained in mental health awareness as well. We also are partnered with an American organization called Fit Gamer or Fit GMR. Look them up, fitgamer.gg. They are the performance team or performance coaching team behind Cloud9 Esports, who are consistently one of the top performing esports teams in the world. For those of you who don't know what esports is, or you've heard of it, go and do a little bit of research. It's $1 billion industry. It's growing at 8% a year. It's absolutely massive. I'm fortunate that my co-founder, Stephen, is a Twitch partner. If you don't know what Twitch is, older generation, go and look it up, or just ask your 14-year-old. So what is it that we need help with? We need doors opened to people who potentially want to come on board as sponsors. We have a number of sponsorship opportunities for brands that want to be seen to be either be doing the right thing or believe in helping the next generation and want to be seen to be doing that. So we have a workbook that every child receives, which also has space for sponsors and advertising. And then on the esports jersey, I don't have it with me today. I've actually already worn it, and I probably need a few more because we just get through them so quickly. But like any sports jersey, it's got spaces for sponsors, logos, and that sort of thing, which are always visible. But the key thing that I want to get across is the program is not just about fun and games. Obviously, it must be fun and games because that's how we're engaging with young people. The key is we want to create better outcomes for young people in a fun and engaging and structured way. And that's what the Association for Online Gamers is all about. Why not join us? Come along. I don't want to be prescriptive and say be a sponsor or be this or be that. If you want to connect with us, we've got Vizu, which is a taxi company here in the UK. They've provided us with office space for a year. We've got Hydra Creative here in Sheffield that have provided us with a fantastic promotional video And watch the space. We're going to be doing an entry for the ESI Film Festival this year. So there's a lot of ways in which, if this is something that resonates with you, get in touch, because we'll definitely be keen to partner up also in other parts of the world.
Wonderful, Peter. I can't wait to see how this pivot and fascinating organization is going to develop and grow. Thank you so much for being here on the Career Revolution podcast, for sharing pieces of your story. It's been brief. I like to keep the conversations to within the 45-minute slot, and we're getting close to that. But I suspect we're going to have you back, because there's going to be part 2 to hear about what continues and what comes. So thank you so much, Peter. It's been really great. And to all of our listeners,
thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yes. And to all of our listeners, you will, in the description box and in the LinkedIn Live, there's going to be links to where you can find Peter. And as he said, just reach out and get in touch. What's on the other side of opportunity? Possibility. And there's huge possibilities inherent within all of us. Here at the Career Revolution podcast, we believe that surrounding yourself with people, ideas, and experiences that can help shift your thinking is in itself revolutionary. So let's go forth and get behind Peter and support him. But most importantly, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here.